Hello everyone, welcome to another horrific unboxing. Well, I was going to do this yesterday, but I got distracted with a lot going on, so we're doing it today. But this came in yesterday, looking forward to it. If you checked out my interview with Jonathan Hicks, you'll know that this is his game that he's just recently created. Oh, looking good already. So today we're going to be talking about pressure. Yeah, Jonathan's a good guy. It was really great having a chat with him. Got interested in his world. Plus, also, we're going to be playing this or scenario linked to it in the new year on the channel. So it only seems right that we get the rule book and we find out what's going on. So this is an industrial science fiction universe. Basically what you're like a team of special operatives, problem solvers. You're sent into the gnarly missions, and then whatever's going on in the world kind of happens at you, right? Investigate links to organized crime, neutralize rogue weapons research, negotiate with rebel leaders on orbital stations, and hunt down whatever that black budget excavation team awoke out in the Procyon Sector. I think it's Procyon, is it? Procyon. I'll ask Jonathan. He made the word. He got the word. So all the day's work. So you're, criminals, gangsters, terrorists, bugs, alien entities that you shouldn't be messing with, demons, whatever. I think it's just leaving it open that you're the team you're sent out to go and try and solve the issue. As highly skilled agents in the special operations squads, it is your job to clean up after the corporations and to stand between humanity and the darkness at the heart of its fragile and claustrophobic existence, both on Earth and among the stars. The universe may be a dangerous and hostile place, and the hypercities and the deep black alike may hide powerful foes, but you have the tools, the training, and the resources to face these dangers, you hope. Pressure. Industrial science fiction role-playing is a rules-light, story-focused game of law, order, and survival in the dark and dangerous corners of the universe, rife with corruption and dominated by corporate interests. An entirely standalone game, Pressure also develops and expands upon the mechanics and settings introduced in those dark places role-playing game, which I will be picking up. Actually, I think it's the scenario that we're talking about next year is going to be like from both anyway. So good thing about these games, they can, there's like an expanding universe, and you can have a game focused on one certain area of it, and then there's another element and you can bring together, and it's good to see. So as usual, we've got our contents, busy breakdown. So got our introduction, officer's briefing, combat, damage, pressure, experience, money and equipment, vehicles, starships, non-player characters, out in the darkness, corporations, other organizations, the reach of humankind. So basically, the reach of humankind, where you've effectively got to in the universe, so to speak. So, got an introduction. Jonathan's written a wee bit of a prologue here. So this is a sequel to those dark places. I'm going to pick that up. I'll probably do an unboxing of that. Have a look at that game. As we talked about, this is very sort of aliens inspired. So it's that sort of universe, humankind reaching out to the stars, the ordinary working Joe, at the mercy of corporations and their games, and that's enough. That's bad enough. But then what you meet out there adds to the sort of terror, if that makes sense. Industrial science fiction. Those dark places was inspired by movies Alien, Outland, and Dark Star, as well as the games Alien Isolation and Dead Space. Focus on normal people thrown into extraordinary circumstances and claustrophobic, deadly, and dangerous environments. It reflects the fate of the blue-collar workers who explore and work in space. These are no shiny starship interiors and fancy technology that keep you alive and distracted. Technology is harsh, functional, and clunky. So this is, like working on an oil rig in space or Mars or Neptune or somewhere, mining a mineral, and basically it's, that work alone is dangerous. but then throw in the mix something out of the ordinary happening. The SOS division. In pressure, players take the roles of members of the team, specialists in the SOS, Special Operations Squads division, trained to face dangers of terror that emerge from the dark. SOS operatives are trained military officers with a variety of skills, enabling them to do the work of a standard starship crew with one added bonus. When things go south, they have the tools and equipment to deal with it. SOS division operatives are called into action for a variety of situations. They're trained to win hearts and minds well and put bullets in them. Investigation work, rescues, prisoner transfers, surgical strikes, and high-risk targets. Searching the long-abandoned wreck of a lost starship. All these things are more expected of an SOS officer. They're expected to perform their duties in and out of uniform, adapting to a mission as their employer sees fit. So effectively, they're band of mercenaries. They're paid by the corporation. So I think the idea of nation states, and that's gone. This, it's all corporations run the show. Leak universe, we'll see it happen today. It's not good. Other scenario options. Rulebook also gives the players a chance to explore the settings through the eyes of other members of society. All right, so you can be a citizen. So you're not just limited. So if being a part of a rescue squad or a special operations squad isn't your thing, you can be citizens, in a hyper city. So you can just be on the ground, you can be going to an office building, you can do anything, and then bring that into your world. As the one controlling the game, the general monitor, GM, will lead the players through stories and exploration and excitement with more and a little danger along the way. GM should be familiar with the rules, ready to make impartial judgments based on the players' questions and actions, while also providing an entertaining, fulfilling experience. Pressure is a story-driven narrative game and is a group activity, with everyone at the table having a hand in building an interesting story. However, the GM is the one driving the game. More information about being a GM can be found in the adventure, the Foster report at the back of the book, which I am not going to read because if you've seen me do these before, never read the scenario. If you're planning to be a player, don't read the scenarios because it'll spoil things. It doesn't mean you never read them, because if you end up playing the game, then you can go back afterwards, obviously, and read the scenario. But as a rule of thumb, unless you're actually planning to run that particular scenario, don't read them. Just it ruins your experience. You limit yourself. If you start reading all the rule books and scenarios and you pick it all up, then you're not going to get the best out of these sort of games. Doesn't mean you can't collect them, of course, but it's like we just finished Heart of the Gods. I went back then, finally read the scenarios, like, oh, right, that's what you're up to. Oh, and saw some other things that could have been thrown in, which was fascinating. It's good to go back afterwards and go, oh, right, that's what it was all about. But when you're actually in the game playing it, you get a better experience if you're reacting to each situation as they come along. If you're kind of pre-gamed, then you just ruin it for yourself. To play pressure, each player will need to create a player character, PC, which is straightforward and easy process. You choose a role in the group, divide up your points between your statistics, and then choose your skills. That's it. Let's create PCs as a group so that everyone knows what everyone else is doing and they're spending their points. That way they'll get a well-rounded team and a nice spread of skills and abilities, which should help in most situations. Spend some time figuring out what your character is, why they've opted for this kind of life, and how they'll interact with other PCs. Ask yourself why you created your character the way you did, why you chose a particular person with those specific skills, and what you intend to do with them in this world. That's if you've seen any of the session zeros, session zeros are really great because that's where you get the sort of feel for the game and how you're put into it. For one shots, pre-generated characters are fine. You just, here's your character, go with it. You're not excited. But if you're going to be playing a campaign, longer than say 2 sessions, then it's a good idea to do a session 0, and that's just your character creating, and that's where everyone just sits down and, without even starting into the scenario, talk about your character, talk about what they're about, how they get in, and that's where you get involved in the game. If you see my recent session 0 for Anomaly, Adam and I are going through it and just the what ifs, and then also you get to talk about the game mechanics. But because my angel character in that game has a lot of discord, which is a massive thing in the game to pick that up. So I had to then justify having that and what happened and the backstory and why I'm in the position I'm in. And it gets your mind in the gear set for the game. With the Call of Cthulhu ones, obviously, Phil likes to do those offline, the session zeros, but we do them. So for Helter Skelter, was that not a good in-depth session zero? Who our characters are, how would be connected to the main, how would end up busy at the opening scene, how we got invited. We do that, then you go through the mechanics and you roll. So when you roll a certain way, like when I rolled initially, my size was like huge. I mean, I could barely make it up a flight of stairs without wheezing. So I had to like re-roll that because it just didn't make sense. But things like that's where you get to have that conversation. It's better to do that first before jumping into the game, because then it brings everything to grinding halt. If you haven't really thought these things through, then when it comes to the game, you're kind of like, oh, right, didn't expect that. Helps the GM to, I mean, this is a partnership. I've talked about this 100 times. It's a partnership between the person running the game and the people playing the games. It's not a versus. It's not like a board game where people are playing to win. If that makes sense. It's creating the story, getting through the scenario. Yes, you can win. Yes, you can build points. But at the end of the day, that's not what this is about. And this is where people have, I think, if you're new to role playing, have a wee bit of a difficulty getting their head wrapped around it. That, oh, right, what do you mean? I don't just roll dice and it's about beating things. It's actually, when things go wrong, that's where you have the most laughs, because you just have to go with it. And yeah, you just get the silly scenarios. And that's where, if you ever meet a group of role players who've been playing together for any length of time, you'll become quickly aware there's like 100 in jokes from games, because that's just the way it works. You get all these little in jokes and what things that happened and all, and then I just start to play yourself. You become part of it. It's really vibrant. It's I'm so glad I got back into it again. I really am, because it's just so much fun. And if you got the right people and everyone's got the same mindset that they're there having a good time, then that's it. You can watch 3-4 hours disappear easily and not even realize. Check out our Alien game, on the channel. Like I said, we just finished the first 4 sessions. Tonight, obviously, we're talking about the movie, because we're having a break between that and the new year, obviously starting in. So we're going to talk about the movie tonight. But yeah, so much fun, laughs, things going wrong. Like my character got wiped out, didn't have a chance, But you go with it. You don't feel aggrieved. If that makes sense, because that's the nature of the game. It's just the way it goes. Right, officer's briefing. I'm not going to read this entire thing out, because links in the description. By the way, folks, pick us up to get up yourself. I'm liking the artwork. It's not overly complicated. It's a nice stripped down, sort of clean artwork, which is interesting, considering the fact it's a dirty, grimy universe. It's a nice, interesting contrast, but we'll see as we go along in the book. But right, so we've got a wee bit of an officer briefing. Addy, sit down, come on, get in, get a seat, let's get it. Right, so yeah, so that's given in character as a briefing, so you can check that out. I'm not going to read it all out. Each you can give, so you get a case file. So at the start of this type of game, you're given a case file. This individual briefing. Numbers in the case file can determine what to do. Attributes. So as usual, charisma, agility, strength, education. So they're standard in most role playing games. When you want to interact with NPCs, you need charisma of some sort. If that's your focus of your game, wheeling and dealing and talking your way into places, you need charisma. Then more into the agility, strength. Agility is your physical aptitude and hand-eye coordination, driving, shooting, gun. I think it requires dexterity. So we're not having to spend some games have a separate dexterity roll, agility's like you're flipping and spinning and stuff, but I think he's combined it with this. Strength, physical part's busy. Can you lift heavy things? That's your strength. Education speaks for itself. So you have 10 points divided up between these 4 scores. The higher the better. No single score can be lower than 1 or higher than 4. So straight away it's leading you into, you can't just be super duper superhero. You can't just put 10 points into one thing. So the game's kind of leading you what you have to do. And this is where you make your choice, and this is where I talked about at the start of the game here. That's why it's good to have your session 0 with the group, because if you've got a team member who wants to specialize in one thing, then you need something to balance that out. Because if everyone just turns up and they're a fighter, for example, so they've all got high strength and all got high agility, and you come up against a keypad and a locked door, and nobody's trained to bypass locks, you basically got a bunch of grunts standing there going, huh? Try to smash it, you know what I mean? It's that sort of thing. So you gotta think of the mission ahead a bit, and that's a conversation which it talks about here between the player and the GM, because that's at the end it's not antagonistic, it's just a chat. You know, you're preparing for a game. That's why it's quite an involved hobby. When you get into this, it really is involved, and you don't even realize that you're hooked. Once you get hooked in this, that's it. There's no going back. So attributes are used to determine your PC is successful when they attempt an action. In the simulation, you'll be given a situation to deal with by the general monitor and ask if you'd like to resolve a situation. So, like I said, you come up against a locked door, keypad. I'll use that. I wonder if... So we're using D6. That's a 6-sided dice. Add the result to your attribute score, and the total is equal to higher than the action's difficulty number, usually 7. So if something's really hard, so let's go to this locked door. It's perfectly fine. It's a keypad. It just needs bypassed. So you have somebody who has that skill. So for this, I would say it'd be their education. So they've been trained and they've put that skill in that they're good at locking doors. So they're saying here it's a 7. So say you put 3 points into education, then you roll a dice. You need to get over 7. You roll your D6. You then get 8. You get 7 or above. You can type in the right keys or put in your device and bypass the door. So that's normal, fine. You come up against a situation in game where maybe it's a bit harder. So the keypad, the door isn't just locked, but somebody's busted the keypad. So instead of being a 7, that would be an 8 or a 9 because of the damage, and you have to negotiate that damage. So therefore, you still have your stats, you still roll the dice, but this time you have to get a higher score because it's more tricky to get through it. And that's the way the game, and then that's just one example, but it could be hundreds of things that happen. Generally, these games, if you're going along with the story and things, you won't roll dice that much. But it's things like that you come across. That's where the challenge of the game is. And that's where, if you've decided correctly to pick the right attributes and you've got a well-balanced team and you've had the conversation, then you've a chance of doing it. But saying nobody goes for education at all and everyone's just got a 1 in education, your chance of, well, you're not going to do it, because if you only got a 1 and you roll a 6 and the difficulty 7, you have to roll a 6 just to maybe bypass that door. But if the door's busted up and you need an 8 or more, you're not getting through it. It's above what you understand. So I hope that makes sense in my clunky way of speaking, trying to explain how dice rolls and that works. I've done it in different, you know what I mean? I've done a few of these unboxes now in different games. A lot of this does boil down, which is, if you play a particular game, let's put it like this here. If you play a particular game, there's no reason why you can't try a different system, because there's a lot of recognizable stuff. Even though there's different, dice rolls, there's different mechanics, a lot of it boils down to the same things. Can you talk to people? Can you fight? Can you solve problems? Can you do research? It's the basics of what you can do as a person. And you know yourself, if you build a team of specialists, you need someone skilled in a particular area. And if you're told a mission, then that depends who you bring onto your team for that mission. So you have a squad of 20 people, and they've all got different characteristics. But for that mission, you're bringing 4 or 5, because normally 4 or 5 players for games about right. So you're bringing the 4 or 5 people. So I need I need a communication specialist, I need a heavy weapon specialist, I need somebody who speaks this language. And that's all the session 0 stuff, the conversation you have with your GM, and then that's where it boils down to: can you solve it? I'm liking the art. The art in this is very deceptive, I have to say, because the description is talking about a grimy, dirty universe, and the art is very clean cut. It is deceptive. You're thinking it's a nice, friendly, fluffy place, but I'm just waiting until I get along here, that when we start seeing nasty things. I like actually that type of artwork. I like that sort of nice, clean lines, and it's given that sort of Blade Runner vibe to it, which is cool. Oh, sorry, got some people in the chat. Hey Chris, how are you, man? And there's Dialef, how are you, mate? Good to see you. Yeah, it is afternoon, isn't it? Yeah, it is. Yeah. Maybe lunchtime. Right. Optional rule: automatic success and failure. Okay, so this might be pushing rolls. If you've heard in some of the games, if you fail a roll, you can push it, but the consequences, if you don't get it the second time, are worse than if you just failed regularly. But let's see. The idea that there's no way that a character can succeed at certain moments in the game can only be free. Nah, hold on, put my teeth back in. The idea that there's no way that a character can succeed at a certain moment in a game can not only be frustrating for the players, but also for the GM. If the situation the PCs are finding difficult somehow stalls the game or makes certain events unsatisfying or unexciting, one rule you can use to give games a more adventurous feel is to make sure all rolls of 6 automatically succeed, no matter the total result. Similarly, you can make all rolls of 1 automatically fail. You can use both automatic successes and failures in your sessions, or just one or the other, depending on the skills and abilities of the PCs. However, it's advised that you make a decision of which of those rules you're using as a group before you start the campaign, and introducing them during play can damage immersion. Right. Once again, this is back to the session 0. Session 0s are so important. It's so important that you just have a chat about what games you're playing, without spoiling the scenario, of course, but an idea of what you're going into, so you can sort of prepare. So let's go back to the locked door. Like I said, people haven't bothered with education. They come up to the door, the lock's busted up, so it's going to need a roll of 8 or more. Nobody can do it because everyone's just put 1 in education. So even a roll of 6 would already give you 7 points. So it's not going to happen. With this rule, however, if you roll a 6, you somehow manage to bypass and get it working. So there you go. That's instant. By rolling a 6, there you go. You solve the problem. I suppose that's yeah. You need to say that, because you can't just decide 1 minute, oh, I'll give you an automatic success. Or I could see how that would be really annoying. Just to get through the game. So yeah, it's good to decide whether or not. Yeah, it's useful, especially if it's a story driven. You just you don't want the problems. Like if everyone's standing in front of a locked door and not going any further, and it's an airlock, then the game's kind of over. If you've ever heard my Star Wars role-playing game story, I shot a rocket, it hit the tank, it really rolled success, and it blew the tank to smithereens, and the piece of information was in the tank, and then the GM ended the game because we couldn't get it. And you're just like going, and I still remember that from like 20 odd years ago. Just that frustration of, hold on, I rolled well. How did I end up failing the entire game? But it was just that sort of thing. But yeah, that's a good way to maybe get through that if you're not wanting to have things come. If you want your story to progress, that's a good one to use. Same as if you roll a 1, that's it. You blow the sparks of the door or the pad, you fry it. It can't be used again. So swings and roundabouts, you really turn into a coin flip at that point. So yeah, interesting to play with. I would suggest if you're first playing this, not using this first and trying it without it to see how you get through the scenario. To me, just reading that, I would leave that particular rule out the first time you play a game like this, just to see how you go. And if you can do without it, cool. And it's, it doesn't take away from the game. But if you're finding that you're getting into games and they're, it was really hanging up on a particular dice roll, then maybe that'd be a good thing to bring in. But I would try without it first, if that makes sense. If you're playing this, just from what I'm getting the feel of so far. Right. So here we go. This is where we're getting a bit more in depth. So it seemed quite simplified, the sort of stats, but then now we're getting into a wee bit more in depth. So charisma isn't just charisma. You have various skills. So bargain, con, leadership, perception, streetwise. So you don't just pick, you've got charisma, but then you have to specialize in a particular area of charisma. So are you a con artist? Are you a leader? Do you get people to follow you? Are you a negotiator? Streetwise, can you go and talk to the local hoods without getting your head caved in? So there you go. There's already expanded out. Just a simple table. Nothing complicated here. And as we're saying, okay, who is your character? Agility skills in stealth, drive, pilot, ranger, dodge. So once again, your agility is not just an all-rounder. You're not an acrobat that does flippy. You have to what have you honed your skills into? Where have you specialized? So are you somebody who can sit in an OP, in a hedge watching somebody for 2 weeks, or sneak through the roof of a building without being seen? Or are you somebody, basically a driver? So is that where you put your agility into, that you put you behind the wheel of something and you're flying? Strength skills, climb, hand to hand, leap, melee, or swim. That's an interesting one, swim, when it's a space-based game. I think that could be interesting. So you're going to encounter some situations where there's bodies of water, or do you swim in space? Interesting one to choose. So once again, so even your strength, are you a fighter, hand to hand? Can you jump? So these, you just to become an all rounder, you have to think about what your character is, what to specialize. So if you're going for, let's say, example, an assassin, you're gonna be focusing on having perception because you want to be around your surroundings, stealth, and then you want to either be melee or hand to hand. So you want to be able to, be aware of your surroundings, sneak into places, and then when it comes to your target, both do the business. Education skills, computers, engineering, medicine, navigation, science. So there you go. You can start seeing the building blocks here of, okay, I want to be at this. Okay, what does being at this entail? What does being an assassin entail? What does being a pilot entail? Okay, I'm a heavy gunner. What does that entail? And then you start to build your stats accordingly and focus. So straight away, there's a page. We're getting the side picture of what our character is going to be. Using skills, special skill, increasing skills. You can now have 4 attributes and 20 skills. Once you've created a PC, you can't increase your attribute scores any further, but you can increase your skills, making the PC more proficient in that area of expertise. So we've got further skills to look at. Or is that this? Hang on, I need to go back. Oh, sorry, my apologies. I've read that wrong. So you've got your initial 10 points for your attributes you put into that, but then your points then decides how you get extra points in to put in the skills. And now, depending on your attributes, means you can specialize. But it's the same sort of thing. Once again, I'm just going over I've just read this for the first time. You've watched me. The principle's the same. The mechanics might be slightly different to what you do, but then that's where you read this first. If you're going to run a game, you read this first. You can really use the mechanics. A good example is actually to create a couple of characters. I find if you're going to run a game and you want to learn the rules, just roll dice and create characters and see how it goes, and then get the mechanics in your head. And then when you're talking to a player, then that gives you, you've at least had a bit of experience. I think the worst thing to do is just to do what I'm doing, trying to figure it out cold while reading for the first time with a player. That would be wouldn't be good for either party. So you need to appreciate GMs. People that run games, they have to do all this background work. As a player, you effectively just have to turn up and you get led. So one thing is, if you're a player, turn up for the GM, for example. If you're going to commit to a game, turn up. The minimum you can do. Don't try to win or beat the GM. It's not a battle. The person running the game has to put all this effort into the background, doing the research. And this is even before building the scenario. And they're there to help you get your character, get where you want to go. It's not a battle. So that's why I said this is what makes this game unique. This type of game, they're a partnership. You work with the GM works with you. Everyone's there to have a good time. That's the point of it at the end of the day. I know I've went over this before, but it's sometimes worth repeating, especially if this is the first video you've seen, folks, of this sort of thing. I've got quite a few now. You can sorry, starting to read. You're more than welcome to check them out. Sorry, I'm forgetting sometimes in life. Skills time around. So using skills in abstract process. Most time takes around 5 rounds. Knows a round. Simulation of time. Yeah. So you see, a round is a series of actions. It's just a way. It's a mechanic, so that everything isn't just a free for all. You have a wee bit of structure of you encounter this door. What do you do? So you say, for example, to achieve, you want to bypass the lock. It's going to take you 5 rounds. However, in round 3, enemies are going to start to appear. So your teammates have to cover you while you do that. So it adds an extra, should it be pirates? Should it be alien creatures coming or about to rush towards door? That's why you need to get it open. So they're going to appear in round 3, for example. So that gives the rest of the members of the team 2 rounds, to get ready. So I don't know if I put it in this, but for example, if you've got a weapon, you're going to take aim. It's completely different to just firing off the hip in terms of success. So it's things like that. So GM might give you a +1, and once again, that's a conversation can happen. Whether modifiers. That's completely up to the GM and the characters. If you make a convincing case, yeah, I'll give you a +1. I'll give you an extra dice. Blah blah blah. That's you've seen that. If you've watched any of these games, you've seen this. Playing a SAM. Oh, synthetic automation SAMs, right? So we've got synthetics in this. So you don't just have to play a human character. That was the thing as well, because people, when I was chatting to Jonathan, we were talking about the likes of Call of Cthulhu and Alien, the other games where maybe people have played other systems like D&D have a major problem with the fact you're playing a human character and you're so fragile. A lot of people can't get their head around that because they want to play this invincible superhero that can just be hacked to pieces, and still keep going and not even notice. Where a lot of especially the games, notice I focus a lot of these sort of games because I like the human aspect, because you have to think about what you're doing. A lot of people have a problem with that. One thing Jonathan's mentioned, which is good, is you can be augmented. So you can play a synthetic. So that straight away is going to give you different attributes, which I'm not going to, because by the bloody book, like I'm like, I'm starting to wig out because I want to get stuck in this. you can augment yourself then, so you can have cybernetics. You just have the modifiers. You can have super soldier serum. Why not? Especially we talked about this sort of game. You can have a super soldier serum. So if you're not too comfortable about playing, and maybe it's just coming out of your comfort zone. Maybe you're used to playing D&D for years, especially 5th edition. Where you're this superhero with a million points, and you can just get pummeled right the last hit point and still be standing and fighting. Coming into a sort of game can be intimidating. I get it. So if you're just playing for the first time, and this is the GMs as well, if you've got somebody that's maybe apprehensive, make them an augmented human or a synthetic. So give them that bit of buffer. And then when they realize that they're having fun, that lets them get into the universe. If that makes sense, and still have that feeling of protectiveness rather than vulnerability. Because I know it's intimidating mentally, because these are mental games at the end of the day, and they play on emotions and desires. And that's, and when you're putting yourself into a character, you get invested. You don't want your character to get wiped out in the first scenario. And there's that fear there of putting so much effort into something to lead to nothing. It's human, it's human nature. So make them an augmented human. Give them a buff to get them playing. And then when they play, and then they realize that there's so much more to role playing than just clunk, 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 roll dice, kill the beast, steal the treasure, clunk, 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 next one. And they like it. The next time they play, they'll not worry about it. Or you can have their cybernetics feel. It's all about the just bang on the carrot, get people involved, having conversations. These game systems don't have to be antagonistic. Just because you like one doesn't mean you're betraying it by playing another game. In fact, the more you play different games, the better role player you become, and the better the more you get out of the whole hobby. It's like I come from a 40k background. Playing other tabletop games apart from 40k is a good idea, because you learn other systems and you get a more of appreciation, and you learn tactics, and you become a better player. Where if you just stay with the one thing, tunnel vision, you become limited, and it's easy to get into a comfort zone. It's so it really is. But you kind of owe it yourself as a person to challenge yourself and step out every so often. Come give it a try. You'll see all the links. Come in Discord. We have Discord servers, loads of gameplay and channels, tons of games happening. Some of which I've never even heard of before, and I'm seeing people playing, having fun, and getting interested. We have a vibrant community. I've joined. Brotherhood of the Dice, Infinite Monkey Tales, RX Oliver. We have a really good group there of different channels and different groups of people, and we all cross over, and we're it's all about the love of this hobby. And that's it's really obvious when you start seeing the other games being played. And we all try to help each other out. So it's worth getting involved. So in the description, of course, you'll see the link tree, all our platforms. Look for the Discord and have a pop over. If you want to get involved, if maybe you've never played a role-playing game before, you want to reach out to the channel, we'll get you sorted. Not a problem at all. So here we go. Rounds. Talk about rounds, initiative. Any role-playing game, you roll initiative to see who goes first, who gets the drop on someone. That's it's all a mechanic. It's cool to do. Personal combat. So that's personal one-on-one sort of combat. Ranged combat. So that's shooting. Number beats 7. Yep. So here we go. Normally, so 7 seems to be the number you have to beat to achieve stuff. Fair enough. However, if the body's partially obscured, then it can be an 8. Back to the broken lock. If you just have to bypass the lock, it's a 7. But if the lock's busted, it's an 8. Fill in cover, so increase to 9. So they're like right behind a box. It gets harder. Dodging pretty much speaks for itself. Damage, right. So weapons have certain damage. So weapons have a damage cap of 1. In fact, the point of damage, no matter what the roll. Damage cap of 2. A roll in D6 means you inflict 1 point of damage. Anything else inflicts 2 points. Oh, right, so we're not doing it. So lucky shot. So let's have a look. Yep, there's a damage table. So this is what happens to your character. Punch, kick, damage 1. Club, damage 2. Knife, 3. Taser, MK4. That must be a rifle. Does damage at 4. A gauze pistol does 16. Gauze rifle does 40. It never talked about hit points in this, actually. Must be getting to it. I'm only a few pages in, but must be getting hit points. Taking a bullet to any part of the body has differential effects. Yeah, it's not good getting shot. Getting shot or stabbed or both, or and carrying on like nothing happening isn't the truth of it. Yeah, back to what I said, people that maybe play D&D have a real problem with this aspect. And like I said, it's just that's where you use super serum or you use augmentation. If you want to bring somebody aboard that's been used to that sort of environment, and then this can be really intimidating. That one gunshot, that's it, you're done, or a brick to the head, you're done. You know, that's it could be quite intimidating. Same as vampire. You know, I played vampire. That's where I started out with all this here in werewolf. That's the same thing. You can get hacked to pieces if they're not silver weapons. You know, and basically carry on because you're a supernatural being. So going from that to a human character, you're kind of like, oh, you know, it takes a wee minute to get your head around it. Yeah, so basically what it's doing is it makes your difficulty go up. So if you're injured, it's going to be harder to do things. So if you've got a gaping wound in the side of your body because somebody put a bit of steel in there, you're not going to be running as fast. You're not going to be climbing as fast. You know, you're disadvantaged. So that makes your difficulty go up. So that's fair enough, but also stops you charging in. You know, this idea of just charging in and being immortal doesn't work in these sort of games. But then that adds to the drama. You know, look at our Shiver adventure. People were afraid to move because a rug came alive and the people realized then how much damage a rug could do, an animated rug. And then it's like, oh god, I'm gonna get wiped out, you know, and then all of a sudden the way you deal with the game just changes. And that's an aspect of fun as well, because then you have to think and you have to problem solve, and then you have to don't just charge in, you have to maybe avoid combat because it's not good. And then it also gives you a chance. Not everybody wants to be a combat based character. And that's what I find frustrating about D&D. If you're not a combat based character, there's not much in the adventure for you. You really are left out, especially dungeon crawls, because all you are is an extra, basically a fifth wheel. If you don't go for a combat focused character, it's really frustrating. So you're kind of locked in that step where these games, for those that don't want to just play somebody hacking and slashing, there's a whole plethora of roles you can play and be useful and be part of the game, because getting into combat's not a good thing because you can die like real life. Going out, you know, you can always tell somebody who's never been in a fight before. They're always like, well, I knock your head in, I do this. You know that they're being punched in their life. Look at the internet. You know the Louis dweebs that are always going off. I've never had a good smack in the face, because if they had, they'd think twice about what they say to people. Because getting punched in the face isn't fun. Just put it like that, you know. But there we go. I digress. Oh, pressure rules. Now, this is what the title of the game, so this is what we'll have to look at. I think this is going to be similar to stress. So let's talk about pressure rules. You may say I may, but I actually mean will, find yourself in situations where your mind and even your sanity is put under extreme pressure. Perhaps you're trapped in a small space and you have claustrophobia, or you've been surprised by an unexpected corpse, or you've been hunted by some deep space horror beyond explanation, or God's forbid, you get shot. Anything you can trigger an extreme emotional response calls for a pressure roll. Here we go. This is the crux of the game. This sounds very Cthulhu-esque. Cthulhu's your sanity rules, or D&D Ravenloft, your horror rules, which is funny because D&D players don't get it. That Ravenloft scenario is actually really good, but your typical D&D player doesn't understand it. That's why things like Ravenloft and Dragonlance are kind of like subgenres off the side. The rest of your normal D&D people don't get. They're like, oh, what's this strange thing? So they've attempted to bring that in, but your typical D&D player doesn't want to know. I'm not spending this entire stream second off D&D, by the way. Just it's funny, it's observations that I've noticed. To make a pressure roll a single d6 and add your pressure bonus, which is your combined strength and education scores, as we discussed earlier. Right. Obviously, I'm skimming through this. I'm not reading out this book verbatim because go get it. Basically, go help. Jonathan's a really good bloke, and he's really invested in what he creates. And everyone that's played one of his games has enjoyed it so far. So go help the guy out. Link in the description. You know what I mean? Help independent creators because it's bloody hard. If you roll more than 10, you've passed, and you're shaking, you'll be fine. Continue as you are. If you roll exactly 10, you're shocked, stunned into inaction. You cannot take any actions in the next turn. So it's you see a corpse and like, if you roll 9 or less, you're seriously affected and your pressure level goes up by 1. This is where things get bad. Yeah, you're starting to break down. The stress dice in Alien, that's what wiped me out. I rolled the stress dice and I just ended up a gibbering wreck when I saw the neomorph. That was it. My character could do nothing. They just stood there and basically peed themselves and then got ripped to shreds. Game over. That's but then that's the whole point. That's the tension. That's the horror of these games. And it's good. It's good to have that because then that's you get invested then in your scenario. If you're just blasé going through, all right, I'll just roll 3 dice and nothing will happen to me. Why are you invested in the game? You may as well play Snakes and Ladders. Where these games you're meant to get involved, you're meant to get emotional, you're meant to get invested. Obviously not acting an arse, and throw hissy fits, but you get invested and it's so much fun. The trick is, though, when something happens to your character, is you learn to let it go. When you get invested in the emotion of the moment with your character. But once that happens, you let it go as a real person. And that's sometimes people have a wee bit of difficulty with that. And that's, once again, it's just this unique nature of this hobby, why people can't get their head around why to play it. And then when they get in, the all of a sudden they find these emotions happening to them and don't know why. Because if you're playing a normal PC game, especially modern ones, because they're boring, but people don't get that. If you're not into playing games and getting that emotional, just investing in it, people find that difficult to deal with, especially if you're somebody that just watches TV, for example, and you don't challenge yourself in life. You never get that emotional build up and release, and it's only good for you. It is. I can only say it's good for you. Episodes anyway. An episode's an uncontrollable emotional response. Oh, so it's basically similar to a sanity roll in Cthulhu. Jitters, exhausted, panicked, rigid, catatonic, insane fear. There we go. So we've got all the mechanics built in that you see something or encounter something gnarly and it's going to affect your character, and we get this is just a mechanic then to say what happens to you. And it's fun to play that out. Like if your character starts wibbling, then that's fun. Like you can come up with your mind, right? I'm going to be charging and doing this, and then all of a sudden you start going, and you run completely the other direction, which is back into danger. Then your fellow players have to figure out what to do, because you can't just leave players to die, because that's going to destroy your team. And then you have to they've run that way, we have to go and get them, and then everything it's that whole chaos of things going tits up, and that's where you have the most fun in these games, when it's not formulaic, when it doesn't go to plan, when things go just completely horribly wrong, as they would do. Think about watching a horror movie. If everything just went right in the plan, nobody did the stupid thing, would it be a fun movie? No, someone has to go and poke the alien egg so the face hugger jumps in their head. You need that mechanic. because else the rest of the story wouldn't happen. You need people to be terrified and, lose the plot and shoot the flamethrower the other direction and then fry up a set of circuits. That's all part of the drama and tension. And this game just has mechanics there to allow it to happen. And believe it or not, it's not during the game, it's afterwards when you're thinking back at it and you realize we just built a scenario. We just basically created a movie scene without even realizing. And that's what I'm saying. You end up with the in-jokes. Once you meet a group of role players, all the in-jokes and the talk, and it's all about previous games because it is living theatre. People aren't actors. It's not like an acting, script. But you do have it's an element of living theatre, and we create the scene, and that is exhilarating, and it really is fun. Really, I'm the person most like to run the basement. Yeah, I'm the sort of person I'm gonna try and tackle the thing because that's me. I get my backup. If somebody's trying to intimidate me, I get my backup. So I'm the sort of person I'm going to have a go. I'm Friday the 13th party it. I'm your dumb boxer bloke that thinks he's going to take on Jason. That's me. I'm going to have a crack and I'm going to get my head removed from my shoulders. I'm the person you don't give into the, the really high tense political discussion because I go and blow all that up and I start a war between countries. Experience. So I'm not going to read it all out. You get experience points, elite teams, using experience points in other ways. So yeah, as you play through, usually the games are broken. So say you have a campaign. So we're playing, I'll use Alien for an example. We're playing the Draconis Strain trilogy. We've just finished the first part of the campaign, the Chariot of the Gods. We've all got story points, experience points. So what our characters done gives us certain points. We can then carry those points across to the next part of the game. And that could be the difference between, having a bit of extra equipment or having an extra dice roll in a situation where things are dire. And that's why, like I said, you get invested, you work with the GM, you don't try and derail the game, you don't be that guy. It's all a collaborative process, and you invest yourself in the story. Believe it or not, you invest yourself in the story, you're not having to try to earn points. You'll just do it automatically. If you're invested in your character and you're your place and you're playing that sort of role, then don't worry about getting points. It's not a win or lose. You'll get them. If every time you try to do something, you have a good reason for it and you can justify it. And that's a good thing in real life, actually, because you're explaining yourself. So when you're doing it in a game like this, you're explaining yourself. Believe it or not, those skills transfer to real life because if you can explain yourself and what you're trying to do, guess what? It's not bad. Not a bad thing. So here we go. Money and equipment. Earnings. So that all plays into factor because you're going to be in, from what I guess in this game, you're going to be in space stations. Like it's not just the exploring the far reaches of space. There's colonies set up. There's workers. So you've got transactions. There's leisure facilities, hotels, places you can go and crash for the night. So you're not just sleeping in the bunk of the ship. You can go out and do things. You might need to buy equipment, so earnings and all that kind of stuff. You're an employee at the end of the day. You're part of a specialist team. You're an employee, so you've got to. Not everyone's a hobo in the street, though you can't play that. And that's where the whole streetwise things and all come in. So you've got got that, but it's just a mechanic to be able to do things rather than just here's everything you need. You got to go work for it. So not everything's all about the combat. It's about right. I need to go pick up these items. You go and negotiate and barter, and you've only got 10, whatever the currency is. Say you've got 10 credits, and the thing costs 11. Then you use your negotiating skills to get down to 9. And that's good. That's not time wasted. That's your role playing out the scenario and being useful and playing the game. Vehicles, right? So I remember when I was talking to Jonathan, he was saying that they're not. These aren't factory line starships. It's not Star Trek or anything like that. Where there's, I know he's talking about producing an extra book. Well, there's actually classifications of ships, so the difference between a cruise liner and a sailboat. But they're all purpose built. They're knocked together. He was actually making me think of orcs 40k orcs, the way they build ships. That's what I had in my head when he was talking about this. But each one's unique, and that's cool because then that gives your ship, you know, it mightn't be that nice. It could be bolted, riveted bits onto it, extra antenna. You know, it was built for one purpose, but you've converted it to do something else. Service vessel salvage. So yeah, there's starship identifications, stats. So you basically build, like your character, you build your ship. So you've got a unique ship for the game, and that could be as much a character as anything else. Think about good scenarios. Like tonight we're going to be talking about, like the Nostromo was a character. It was as much a character as any of the human characters, and that's, you know, everyone knows the Nostromo in Alien. Oh God, I can't even remember the name of the ship, but the ship in Cowboy Bebop, for example, that was a character in itself. It was their home. Think of Mora in Farscape. The ship can be the Enterprise, you know, in Star Trek, the Millennium Falcon, and the Starship things. They're as much a character as the humans, so actually getting the chance to build your ship, I like the idea of that. I like the idea of having your ship. We're maybe a bit of I'll need to speak to Jonathan about it. In fact, when we do the session 0 in the new year, that'll be an interesting one I want to talk about, is how we're building this ship. And I'm actually quite interested that we have I'm thinking of being a pilot, actually. That I'm thinking about when this upcoming game. I'll have to have a chat about it. But I'm thinking of being the pilot of the ship, and the ship being the character, and the home base, and where we do it. And I like that. Like, I love the Firefly series. God, what a brilliant series that was. But Firefly, that was just as much as a character as anything else. So I'm liking this aspect of the game. It's one that hasn't really been touched on in other systems that I'm aware of. Navigation, Starship Hazard. So yeah, Starship Combat. So there you go. We can have, you know, you can be in the ship and come across other ships, and everyone has to jump the gun turret. But then again, how many gun turrets can you put in that affects the speed and agility, and you not overload with ammo so the thing doesn't blow up in one hit? You know, it's all that kind of fun stuff. Damage the starships. Yeah, so here's a whole section on, you know, your ship. So already I'm thinking your ship's just as much of a character in this, which I'm liking. And I'm already thinking, I don't even know what the scenario is for this game that we're going to be playing, but because I haven't really done this in the game, you know, having the ship as much of a character, I'm thinking it'll be my baby. And we'll have it, you know, we'll see what we can build a certain way. And then if there's enough, like if there's space-to-space combat, who doesn't love that? Not just being a human character disembarking, but actually being in the spaceship, doing space-to-space combat. That's a good fun thing to play. And then that's built into the game here. So people are running about and manning gun turrets, or, you know, smoke dischargers, or what are we going to have? Or deflection rays. Obviously, I'm flicking through this. I'm not reading it all out. But yeah, there's a whole lot of fun to be had, an aspect to dive into with the game. And then we're going to non-player characters. So NPCs, they're the ones that the GM runs, and they're the people that you interact with to solve problems. Yep, and you basically just give them, yeah. Oh, right. So there's built in, you know, there's like sort of pre-gen. It's just a thug. Streetwise 1, charisma, agility. So there's their stats. Reporter, corporate officer. So there's terrorist cultist. So there's a few examples. There's pre-gen stats. As a GM, as somebody run the game, you can roll your own. If you want to, you can just roll your own stats for your NPCs. You have certain NPCs in mind. Yeah, think about it. You go and get another. You see this. Think of like building up your PC. You see a new sound card, or you see a new FLT drive, or there's something. Here's a new gimmick. I'm thinking smoke dischargers or something that disguises you. You go and source that and buy it and fit it to the ship, and then you have that aspect. If you do come across pirates, for example, that even a new paint that looks like a meteor. Imagine having your ship built, almost disguised like a meteor, so you can land on one and you don't get seen. Stuff like that. So you can actually bring it up. Is there something that can mask your engine drives, like a suppressor that doesn't, you don't get the full blast of the drives. Like a rifle, you have a suppressor so it doesn't get the full flash. I mean, there's loads of fun to be had there, and I don't think I've ever come across a system where your ship is as much as much character and actually have fun with it. That I'm really looking forward to playing with this. Dangerous personnel, rogue AIs. Right, so this whole section is all about NPCs, things that the player can come up against. Cat, snake, lizard, spider, dog, ghosts, spirits, poltergeists, aliens. There's no reason. Apart from Event Horizon, what space adventure do you know has a supernatural, and Hellraiser Bloodlines, obviously, but Leprechaun in space. But there's not that many space supernatural adventures. For some reason, there's always been like a massive line drawn between that. Just because you're in space in the future doesn't mean ghosts and spirits don't exist. So there's a whole horror game waiting to happen. Just happens to be in space. Orientation briefing. Okay, it's a bit role player esque. All right, take a seat. I'm going to keep you too long. This is a required briefing. Oh, hold on. This is now in conclusion. Okay, I'm gonna. Right. Yep. So here is now the scenario, I believe. Yep. So I'm not going to read this, but okay. So that's the scenario for the game. The reason I'm not going to read this is I could end up playing it, and I just have this rule where if I've got the core rule book or anything, I don't read the scenario because I don't want to spoil it. There you go. This is really nice. Look, nice hardcover book, really compact. It's not rules heavy. I mean, there's the rules here are sensible. The tables are sensible. It's not one of those games where you have to basically get a degree in the subject before you can run it. You just have to make yourself familiar. Biggest thing is say just roll a few characters, get your head around it. I will be going back over this again, just getting a bit more familiar with the rules and the character creation. Already, I'm thinking what I want to be because I'm liking this. I'm really liking this starship aspect of it. That's something I want to play with. That's where I'm getting invested. So depends how much in ship time it's going to have. But I think that'll be the focus of my character. I think I want to be the pilot that basically looks after the ship. It's their baby. And I want my focus to be always getting, upgrades and augmentation for the ship. I think that'll be a lot of fun to play with. Because that's every little advantage we can have going these missions. But obviously I'll talk to Jonathan about it when we go to start the game. But there you go. I'll wrap it up there. That's an hour. God, I really do. You'll notice these unboxes when it's an RPG. I just get lost in them. They are so much fun. And back to what I'm saying, there's even I'd never read this obviously before speaking to Jonathan, but I already got it from the interview. I got his passion. I got what he really has a creative mind, and already I'm seeing it here, and he hasn't made this laborious or overcomplicated. It's really Really good book to read. Like the artwork. I would like to see, though, a bit more sort of grimy stuff, more into the horror aspect. Definitely. I know this is to give everyone a chance. Not everyone's a horror fan. I know that's my sort of thing, but yeah, definitely more horror theme. And he's got the mechanics there. He's got it there to play it. I like the idea of a supernatural, adventure in space with monsters and entities. And just because it's the far future, because we as a human race have an arrogance of especially today in the 21st century, we think we're the tip of the spear. We think we're the pinnacle of our evolution. And I'd like to just see something in the far future just remind us, guess what, boyo, you're not. And that'll be fun to play with. But like I said, links in the description. Do check it out. Keep an eye out. Like I said, I will be announcing the game. We will be playing it in the new year. Just obviously, this is a horrendous time to be doing anything because Christmas and everyone's got all got stuff to do. That makes sense. So things will be a little bit slow next week or two, and then we'll pick right back up and we'll be straight into it. So just as to say, keep updated with the channel, do the type of clicky things. Until next time, keep it creepy, keep it horrific.